Hi, everybody. I'm Ronan Warlord Magni, and thanks for coming to the next installment on my Newb to Warlord series. Today we're going to learn about Downstick basics. So this is really meant to be an introductory class for anybody that wants to try to learn and like just pick up a Downstick, right? So for those that don't know what a Downstick is, this is a Downstick. This is really a spear. Per Amtgard, this is like the great category. So go check the rulebook if like you want to learn the basics on how to make one. But pretty much like for a downstick itself, in terms of picking up your own downstick, I would recommend the total length of the stick itself, the weapon to be no taller than your shoulder. I like my handle, the top of my hand, to be about in line with my armpit. Some people like a little bit shorter, some people like longer. I actually used to have this downstick about 6 inches taller, so it would like end up being about here, but that was kind of too tall for me, and it was like more unwieldy. But like the thing to realize is the shorter it is, the easier it is kind of to manipulate. It'll be to manipulate. Okay, but you know you should really, if you're going to invest in a downstick, make sure that you really like build it to your body, because then it'll be like the most effective. Okay, so covering that part, now what this class is really going to be about is, you know, again, the basics. So we're going to talk about the baseline stance and guards, your typical shots, talking a little bit about like the theory and when we come into a fight with the downstick, how to kind of use it, and bait your opponents out and like try to win. And then we'll also talk about like engagements between fighting Florentine as well as fighting sword and board fighters, because that's who you're most likely going to see on the battlefield or in like tournament settings. Every once in a while, a downstick versus a downstick fight will come up, but we're not going to cover that in this class or video. And then finally, I'll just cover a couple of simple combos that you can use while trying out downstick. Okay, so first up, stance and guard. So your stance, right? This is kind of the basis of the short sword stance, right? So my foot, okay, really quick. If you're right-handed, right? I'm right-handed. My short sword will be in my right hand. My downstick will be in my left hand. Okay. If you are left-handed, just mirror all of this. Okay. So normally in the basic stance, this is an offensive stance. My left foot, my down spear foot, is forward, and then my sword foot is back a little bit. Okay. So it should be something like this, right? Go check out my other basic videos to like get a more in-depth basis on like single short sword stances. This is like the base stance that I use for pretty much all of my fighting styles. Okay, but right, left foot forward, spear foot forward, right foot back a little bit, slight bend in your knees. Your weight, my weight is always between the two. I have this sort of like horse stance, which is kind of unique in Amtgard, but right, this is my stance. Okay, my down spear, my left hand will be positioned like this. Okay, so if you look, right, my wrist is bent a little bit, and then the spear itself is positioned out. What a lot of people do when they start off with down spear is that they will actually have the spear like this. This is not beneficial because you actually are exposing more of your outside arm. So, Deegan, if you come here, go on this side. So if I have this like straight arm, it's really easy to get just like coming on the outside lane, boom. Whereas if I torque out, I'm protecting my outside arm more. Okay. The other thing is that you want to bring the tip up a little bit. Right, so now I'm already threatening that pocket stab, and so this now pushes like Tegan out a little bit further, right? Whereas if the spear is down, you know, even if it's torqued out, I'm not threatening as much. Okay. Let's see what else. So that's another key little point with having this out. It's much easier to stab somebody, right? If I want to threaten or hit someone, I just throw, boom, right? Whereas now, if the spear is down like this, if I want to hit, I have to come up first, which faster shots in Amtgard typically lead to you winning because this is more of a speed tag game than a force game. Okay, right? So if I'm already positioned out, I can already stab the legs. Boom. Okay. All right, so now that's the basic stance position for the down spear arm. Then for the single sword, traditionally with single sword, if I was just fighting single sword, my off shoulder would be back, right? But with down spear, I'm actually going to have more of a squared stance, and I'm going to project my sword out more. And so what this projection is, and I have also this sort of like mid guard, so my sword is sort of horizontal. So if Tegan, you come over, what this is doing is this is now protecting the inside arm, right? So if you actually come with just a straight chop, boom. But now if I have this, I block, right? So this is blocking the inside arm, and it's also blocking my shoulder. The other thing with this is that now I have like option. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that so hard. I have options where I can like throw here and then stab, so on and so forth. Let's see. But really what this sword, when you're fighting down spear, a lot of your initiation is with this, right? This is the main thing that I'm hitting with, right? Because with down spear, I have all this range. I can touch Tegan from like out here. Tegan can't touch me. I don't really want to fight with the sword itself, because if I can hit Tegan with the sword, Tegan can hit me with his sword, right? So the whole thing with down spear is like, haha, I can hit you, you can't hit me. So don't get close. There are times when you want to switch stance from spear foot forward to sword foot forward, and that's typically in a defensive situation. So say Tegan likes to rush, right? If I'm spear foot forward, I can't really get Tegan with this spear. Now I can like block out here, but the primary piece of engagement now is the short sword. So what I want to do, if Tegan is in close, is I will tighten up here, but still kind of try to project this out. You know, I can try to like get legs as he comes in. I now have access to the inside, right? This sword is now closer to my opponent, so that's going to be my primary area of mode of attack. Additionally, with the down spear, if any outside sweeps are coming in, I want this here to be able to protect it. So this whole plane of existence is now served as a blocking surface, okay? So Rolf, this is kind of like where the magic staff sort of comes in, right? This is like, I'm able to block the whole range, all right here. Okay, let's see. Typically when you're going into a defensive stance, right, when I'm going sword foot forward, the main objective here is to just survive. If you are consistently like here trying to fight whatever with a down spear, you're kind of doing it wrong, because you're not really using the down spear. The whole point is to survive, so I can now back out, and then I can switch stances and go back. Sorry. Go back to stabbing and using my range, right? This whole piece of equipment and the theory behind it is it revolves around the additional range and the mismatch, right? Again, I can hit Tegan, but Tegan can't hit me. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sometimes what you'll see with Down spear is some people, these are people that are traditionally like really, really good. They'll like drop the spear like this. And so this is sort of like a baited guard. Unless you really know what you're doing, or you actually have a plan, I don't recommend this. But this is like a bait, right? So what a lot of people think is like, okay, this is back. This gives me a second to like come in, but it's often meant for a leg sweep. Some people can like do really cool stuff, right? Where you go boom, and you try to, you get them to like begin to throw, and then you sweep up. But again, this whole back stance is really meant to be a bait to get them to draw in. Sometimes people will switch the stance up, and then they'll like magic switch or stance switch in the middle. Again, this is like more of an advanced sort of technique when you're switching your stances and you're trying to bait your opponent off. But for those that are just starting out, I would recommend the base stance, right, where you're something like this. Okay. All right. So that's your basic stance. That's your guard. If you're going to briefly talk about movement, you primarily want to maintain your guard position. If you're rotating, like if I'm rotating around a board, I often want to rotate to the sword side because, let's switch positions. I want to rotate to the sword side because that's the side that's open. So just stay still. So here I can like kind of get it, but it's hard. If I step over, boom, I have the pocket stab right in the hip. So you stepping over is giving you additional angle to be able to get on the inside. Okay. When your opponent presses and you stance switch, right? When I want to disengage, I'm often going to disengage this way, especially with the boardman, because as I go this way, I'm moving away from Tegan's equipment, and I can push this spear out to give myself more protection. Okay? Those are sort of like the quick upshots when it comes to movement with down spear. Wait. Okay. So now with that, let's talk about the very basic shots within down spear or downstick basics. So you first off, when it comes to throwing shots, most of your tension is kind of centered around these two fingers, right? My thumb and my index finger. Sometimes I'll put a little bit more weight or I'll include my middle finger, but these two fingers, my ring finger and my pinky finger, often open up. And the reason being is because if I, come here, Tegan. If I, let's switch, sorry. If I throw like fully clenched, okay, I can hit, but if I throw out, I now actually have extra range. Do you see the difference? Right, if I want to, this is actually really hard for me to like even move up to get to that position. My wrist is like super torqued. Whereas if I have now just holding by my ring finger or my index and middle finger as well as my thumb, I can now get all the way on the inside. Boom. That's a whole, it's like an additional 4 inches of range. Inches matter. Okay. So again, it's just this. So whenever I throw, boom, I'm loosening up with my pinky and my ring finger. But basically, there's 3 primary shots with downstick. So if you're here, your basic guard, I'm just going to put the single sword, the short sword down for ease of watching. The first shot is just I'm dropping the down spear. So I just go boom. Right, and so this is a straight stab. So, just move the shield. So if I want to hit Tegan right here, right, my guard is lined up, and I just boom, right, and all I'm doing is I'm dropping the pommel down, right. This is going to take a lot of pelling. Anything that you do downstick and it's the first time that you pick it up, you're going to have to pel, because like the range is wonky, it's different, and a lot of people aren't super familiar with this. Like when I started using a downstick, I would just be in my apartment bedroom, just like hitting the door handle of my door, trying to like improve my accuracy. And accuracy is really important with this, right? So again, the straight stab, by just dropping it, you then have the outside poke, right? So boom, and all I'm doing is I'm just throwing like this. I'm just extending my arm out, okay? And then you have the inside poke, which is something kind of like this, like drop flick, but I'm now going further out and extending. So this would be, switch over, if Tegan was like a lefty boardman, this is kind of how I would get a pocket stab, is I would come boom, like that, right? So the angle is now further out, whereas with the straight flick, I'm coming down, right? And then there's this outside poke. Those are your three main stabs and really the three main shots that you will use with downstick. There's also some like other like slashes that you can do. So go back this way. Tegan is now right-handed again. I've already kind of showed some of these. There's this up flick, right? So you hear and then boom. You know, you can also do it from this angle, where I'm just throwing the spear up. You can do the side slash, right, where you come out like this, or you come out like that. The slash like this is kind of hard, right? Because I'm actually now having to use most of the force on my pinky and ring fingers, as well as like twisting my whole hand or my arm. But now I have this huge lever to bring the down spear on the inside. What you can do is like you can sort of like move with it, but again, there's all this torque now, which makes it more difficult. Molina! Sorry. Okay. So there's your side slashes. You have the up slash, boom. And then there's this like wrap slash, which is really flashy. I wouldn't recommend it for people that don't really know how to use down spear. It's not as familiar. Before you try it out, pellet, please, and go slow. But this is like a really flashy shot, and it's a great way to get on the outside. So what I do is you come around, I put the weight, right? My spear is like resting on my arm, and I drop it down. So it's, oh, I missed. I'm out of practice, right? But slowly it's boom. I'm bad. Oh, go slow. There we go. Right. If you're not very familiar with this, it's going to end up in a lot of headshots, and it can become unwieldy very quickly, right? But at like full speed, back out. I don't want to like potentially hit you. It's like that. And again, the main purpose is to go on the outside arm, right? So you're going around and throwing here. If you're really lucky, you may be able to get a torso stab or a torso slash. But once that only works like once or twice, and then your opponent will become like very aware of it, and then you lose like all like surprise, and then it's kind of useless. But again, 95% of your shots with a down spear is going to be these pokes, right? So it's the outside poke, the inside poke, and then the straight flick, okay? And that's kind of it, right? So everything beyond that, when it comes into the combat of downstick, is doing this in different ways, integrating the sword, integrating movement. You can also do these same stabs at the legs, right? So I can hit the leg out. I am out of range. I can do the slash, right? This way, this way. If I can happen to get the torso instead, that's even better. But downstick as a whole is you're typically trying to pick your opponent apart. Okay. Oh, if you're in the defensive guard, right, so you're like here, a lot of your pokes are going to be trying to get stabs or slashes at the legs, right? And this is how you're going to be able to back out. If Tegan is rushing me and I hit his leg, haha, bye, right? Then he can't attack me. Leg him and leave him. Now, when it comes to like the short sword side, I'm not often using wraps. This is really all straight chops and flat wraps, right? So if you just switch, since I'm going to be showing the side, right, I'm just going to be throwing these and then stabbing. Often, I don't want to get this close to have to use the short sword. The short sword is in the event, right, that I have to use it, it's there. But otherwise, I would like to, again, use the down spear. All right, so now, I think with that, I'll move sort of, again, into the theory of down spear. Down spear itself is heavily reliant on range control. I'm back. Right, so, again, the whole point is to use the range advantage of this. If I let Tegan come in close to now, I don't, like, him and I are now squared up, and we both have to deal with the same, or short swords, the advantage of this is now useless. So, with that, I want to be able to maintain my range between Tegan and I, to where I can only hit him and he cannot hit me. And so the way that I'm going to do that is using my footwork, as well as using defensive stabs to keep him away. So I can actually wound him in the legs. Sometimes, I really like, this doesn't work on Tegan because Tegan has like a wooden shield. But a lot of people have lighter like foam shields. And what I'll do is I'll just like, boom, stab really hard, and just hit the shield. I'm not actually trying to hit them, but I'll do it hard. And they'll be like, oh man, I don't want to get stabbed by that. That's not going to be a good time. And it's been a mind game, right? You can also, like, if it's a punch shield, this is getting a little bit ahead of myself, but if it was a punch shield and I, like, threw really hard, bah! That's a really nice little combo, but that is very, very circumstantial. Okay, so, again, right, the whole point, you want to control the range so you can maximize this range advantage, okay? I already kind of mentioned it, right? Since I can hit my opponent and my opponent cannot hit me, even if Tegan was going like Florentine or sword and board, it doesn't matter. You don't have to switch, right? As long as he doesn't have another down spear, I can always hit Tegan, or I can hit Tegan at ranges that he cannot hit me, and that is exactly where I want to stay. I want to stay in his C range. If this is a little bit like unfamiliar, go check out my range control class and movement. But I want to stay in Tegan's C range, and I would like to keep Tegan in my B range with my down spear. Okay. And then, yeah, so with that, right, like, again, my primary threat is always the down spear, and then my short sword is in the event that I have to use it defensively, or I can use the short as, like, a threat, where, I fake up, boom, stab. Or I can, like, throw here, actually, let's switch that one out, because that's actually pretty nice. If, right, I can't actually hit, even if Tegan is to pull his guard in, like, pull your guard in, if I throw here, Tegan still opens up his arm, and I can, like, up slash, right? Or I can pocket stab. Like, all I gotta do with the sword is not let the shield or his other pieces of equipment block the spear, right? And that's it. That's all you gotta do. Even though it is like harder in practice, especially as you learn. Again, everything will be better or easier as you pel and you get more familiar with the pieces of equipment. But that is like really the whole theory around it is range control, using this to threaten or get your opponent to respond. Like this is where I'm using a lot of the setup, and then this is where I'm trying to kill you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about sort of initiations and engagements. This is the way that I approach an engagement with Downspear is going to be very dependent on the equipment that my opponent is using. So in this case, Tegan is using a sword and board setup. So what I'm really wanting to do, or the main focus with the sword and board, is trying to get that hip towards me, because this is what is the easiest, right? Boom! This is like really nice and juicy. Also, as Tegan switches that stance, I'm now coming in easier onto the inside. That is more beneficial for me, right? Whereas if he is board foot forward, I now have to like step around to get on the inside. Okay. But again, right, this is now where I begin to use the short sword to threaten to get Tegan to not block the down spear. If Tegan ends up like really respecting this down spear hard and I can't get anything with the down spear, then I'll actually switch to using the down spear to fake and then killing him with the short sword until he now switches to over respecting my short sword, and then I'm going to kill him with the down spear. Right? So then it's a little bit of like cat and mouse mind games going on. Again, right, when it comes to sword and board, I often need to step into the open side. Boom! Right, throw. If Tegan is left-handed, you don't have to switch. But assuming Tegan is left-handed, I now watch you step around and throw this way. Right? That's going to be a little bit harder because I need to move my entire body. The footwork is different. In this situation where Tegan is left or right-handed, I'll just take this easy step. Bah! Right? Actually, now switch the board, switch sides. I can't just step like this, right? This actually like twists my body. This is not beneficial. I can like maybe kind of get him in the dick. Not great. I can switch over like this. Don't move the board. Right? I can kind of get it. Often what I'm going to do is like throw like this. Again, if I switch stances, I end up shortening my range with the down spear. So I would like hop and throw. That's me personally. Again, you know, this is like entirely up to you. You're the one that's like learning. Take whatever like fits your style, and whatever doesn't, like, don't worry about it. Okay. So often, right, like I will use the sword to like threaten for the setup and then stab. But if your opponent doesn't like respond to this, or they just leave themselves open, just stab them. Like you don't have to like do this whole fancy setup. It's not always necessary. If you can stab them, just stab them. Or like you can take switch over. You know, if Tegan like projects his arm out a little bit, oh fuck, boom, right? Just take the arm. Stuff like that. Sometimes, you know, if we get into a sword and board situation and I stab, you know, I go for the pocket stab. Oh, I missed and I got the leg. Now you have to work with this a little bit harder. Often, a lot of people like try to like come in and get this live leg in the back, right? Stabbing the dead leg doesn't do anything. It often becomes really hard. And then the thing that you got to worry about is if I do this, no. Tegan can pin my equipment. No, this is not a good place to be in, right? Okay, and now this is a contested piece of equipment. You often don't want to be here. In the situation that Tegan is in where you go down to your legs. What I'm going to be doing often is I'm going to be moving this way. This is a very common situation with down spear, right? Because I'm purposely legging people, and then I will deal with you later on my own terms. But what I will do oftentimes is I will like project this out as I like move in, and then go for the back leg. This is a very similar methodology when it comes to sword and board. Sometimes I'll like shift this way and then go for the back leg. It works, right? But what I'm actually doing is, since I can't always get on the inside, if I can't get on in the inside, hit the arm, hit the leg, hit the arm, hit the torso with the spear, hunky-dory, but that's often really hard in this sort of situation. So what I would do is I will actually use this, and sometimes I will plant to give myself a better structure. I can counter, don't drop the sword, you know, hit the back leg, over the board, stuff like that. But again, this is all very circumstantial. If the legs are switched, Antigona's legs, this is actually a better situation because now, again, this is open and he can't pivot as easily. And if he pivots really hard, boom, back shot, right? So in sword and board, you often want to get the sword side legged, wounded, but with down spear, you want to get the shield side leg wounded. Interesting things. Okay, so now, Tegan, can you switch to Florentine? Oh, look at that. Already ready. So, as a down spear fighter, if I'm fighting a Florentine fighter, this is the best. Because now, Tegan, I don't have this like huge passive blocking surface that I have to deal with, right? So I can like, in this guard, if I just come up and stab, that's really great. If, you know, I do it once, now Tegan's going to be aware of it. If I come up, he's going to be like ready to block it. I can then come in, boom, drop stab. Actually, if you go like that, so if I go like this, it's not going to work. But if I drop, right, I like bend down into it, I actually get a better angle. The level change, again, it changes the angles and your ability to get around guards. So this is like really influential around Florentine. You know, if I can get the pop off, stab, if I can reach just over, this isn't like a terrible situation because, okay, I can get this even if I miss with a hand block, right? I'm now tying up this piece of equipment. I'm threatening, very threatening right now. Boom. If Tegan commits to trying to counter with that arm, I can back up and then stance out, right? A lot of people, when they're fighting you with the down spear, they're going to try to hit this spear out of the way. So you're going to have to be very prepared for that. I like to throw it, if I'm fighting a down spear, against a down spear fighter, if I was Tegan, I would throw, right, commit one piece of equipment to throw this way. And then now for a split second, I have to defend everything with my short sword. The thing that Tegan does by throwing my sword out here, though, is it actually loads me up for a slash. So you have to be cautious of that. Now, if Tegan throws the sword the other way, or boom, I can chop up, right? And so that is just throwing my arm up. Boom! Upward slash. Again, this is like much easier when it comes to Florentine because I don't have this whole shield that I have to deal with. But, you know, I'm just, again, I'm going to poke my opponent apart. If I leg with Florentine fighters, their strongest, like, strength is their movement. Boom! If I say I actually hit Tegan in the leg, I was that good. Now this is like a very bad spot for Tegan to be in as a Florentine fighter because he is immobilized. There's all this surface area that I can hit him with. I can hit him from this angle. If I step out, bah, right? there's a bunch of stuff that I can now do against Tegan as a Florentine fighter. So, I mean, really, like, the basis of most of down spears, if I can get a body shot, go for a body shot. Then, second up, I want to take the arms. And then, if all else fails, take the legs, and then just pick them apart until they get tired. But that's, like, the main things when it comes to, like, engagements with down spear against Florentine, as well as sword and board. Right? Just be very cautious or conscientious of your stance, right? Because if this sword begins to drift here, you can chop the inside. Nope. Ah! And then if I lose this down spear arm, I'm now just fighting a single sword fight against a sword and board or a Florentine fighter. That's not the best situation to be in, right? So, one of your biggest priorities is to protect this arm. All right, so that is kind of the way that I think about engagements. Hopefully, that wasn't just like me rambling on, and people were able to get something out of it. But now, just for some simple combos, go Florentine, because this is going to be like the most sword and board. Sorry, sword and board is again going to be the most common sort of setup that you're going to see on like the ditch field, or like in open category. So one of my favorite combos, it's really simple, is here I am, stab the leg, and then people will come down, and then I'll throw really hard for that shoulder slot. Right? What a lot of people will do is as they're dropping, they will slightly drop the shield with them. Okay? So if they do that, it's just boom, throw. But you got to time it right for them to get to about, like, their shoulder to get to about my shoulder level, right? And then it's just over. What else? There's, again, the step and outside stab. Boom! Right, chop or poke. This is, again, really nice because I'm going around the board. If you want, you can throw a pump with it, where it's like, stab, or I can throw directly at the board, stab. Anything that sort of provides misinformation that this piece of equipment needs to stay here or go further that way. Okay? There's also the up slash leg combo, right? So I'm going up, I'm already loaded, and then poking out. Another like poke combo is you use 2 of the 3 pokes. You go this outside poke and then the inside poke. And so what you do is you go boom, boom, right? And so if you're really, really good, you can actually throw those 2 shots in the same exact position. So if I was able to get Tegan's arm, oh, I wasn't that good. Right, I can throw boom. That was not great. Boom, boom. Again, I'm a little out of practice on this, but you get the point. Where I'm throwing out, those are very solid stabs. I'm sorry, kind of. And then, again, pumping, torso stab. I can throw this out stab. I can throw the flick down. Another thing, again, I kind of already covered this. If I can push this board right here, this is the weakest point, and then throw, right, I want to manipulate the equipment down, expose the shoulder. Using the spear to manipulate equipment is a great time. It can be hard. If Tegan actually pushes the board up against his body more, it's really hard, right? But if the more he projects it out, especially if that was like a punch shield, the easier it is going to be for me to just like manipulate him. I almost said a really bad phrasing. But yeah, those are some like pretty common setups. This one's kind of dirty because it's double legs. Where I stab here, I stab on the outside, boom, and then hit that leg. This isn't super recommended because I am committing my body down, and this puts me in a more vulnerable state, right? But if you are gonna stab them in the legs, just do the stab shoulder combo. You can also like stab, throw, but you kind of have to be careful because you cross your body. You can get really creative with it. People that are like really exceptional at down spear do really, really crazy stuff, and they look really cool. And I'm still trying to get there one day. But this, I think, gives a pretty good basis for people wanting to learn how to start using down spear. And yeah, hopefully everybody was able to find something sort of useful and can begin, poking and stabbing people and looking really cool and awesome. But with that, that's all I have prepared for today. Thank you, Tegan, for letting me stab you unrelentingly. And then thank you guys for your time and attention. And I look forward to seeing you on my next Newb the Warlord series. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Darian.